How far would a mother go to protect her son? How far should a mother go to protect her son? And, in the case we're looking at tonight, how far did a mother go to protect her son? We're going to review the case of Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito. For those of you that may not remember it, or I'm not sure how far outside the United States the coverage went, and take a look at a letter that Brian's mother wrote to him around the time of Gabby's death. Come join us as we see a mother's way of expressing love to her son. Hey everybody, it's Chris from Guilty Words, where we unravel crime one word at a time. Tonight we're taking a look at the Gabby Petito Brian Laundrie case. And for those of you that aren't familiar with it, let me give you a quick recap, and then we're going to look at the timeline because there's some very important timing here. Brian Laundrie killed his girlfriend Gabby Petito when they were on a road trip in June of 2021. In the ensuing investigation, the FBI found what came to be known as the burn after reading letter that Brian's mother had written to him. It seems to imply that she's willing to help him cover up a murder. This became central to a lawsuit that was filed after Gabby's death and Brian's suicide, in which Gabby's parents claimed that Brian's parents knew that Gabby was dead and didn't admit it, leading to extended pain and suffering. Let's go through what happened with this case and then look carefully at this undated letter to see if we can figure out when Brian Laundrie's mother wrote it. She claims it was before they left, but a lot of that doesn't seem to make sense. Let's take a look at it together. Brian and Gabby left Brian's parents' house in Florida in June of 2021, headed to New York State to see Gabby's parents, and then headed out west to tour some of the famous national parks. Gabby was doing a social media vlog about their trip. On August 12, 2021, there was an altercation in which police were called about a couple having a serious fight on the side of the road. There's video footage of Gabby and Brian and their fight. It appears Brian's hit Gabby. She didn't want to press charges. The whole thing was called a mental health disturbance, so no one had to be charged with anything. If it was domestic violence, somebody would have had to have been brought in. The police basically said, separate for the evening, calm down, and go on your way, which they did. On August 17th, there was an altercation at a restaurant in which Brian appeared to be screaming and extremely angry with Gabby. From August 24th to 27th, Gabby was regularly texting with her mom, as she had done throughout the trip. On August 29th, Brian placed a phone call to his parents, in which they said he was extremely upset, almost frantic, saying, "Gabby's gone." We'll talk more about what else he said as well. On August 30th, Gabby's mom received a last text from her, but said it didn't sound like Gabby. Also on August 30th, Brian returned to Florida in Gabby's van. No Gabby with him. While the Petito family is getting increasingly worried about where Gabby is and are getting no answers from the Laundries, the Laundrie family goes on a family camping trip from September 6th through 8th, about 75 miles away from home. On September 11th, the Petito family files a missing persons report. And in response to that, the police go to the Laundries' house, where essentially they're given the business card of the Laundries' attorney, and the parents and son refuse to speak to them. On September 17th, the police are called by the Laundries to come to the house and are told that Brian had left, and they don't know where he is. So in addition to the frantic search that's going on for Gabby, they begin to search for Brian. On September 19th, they found Gabby's remains near a national park that she had been seen visiting with Brian. In September of 2021, the Laundrie home was searched, and the burn after reading letter was found in Brian's closet by the FBI. It wasn't released until almost a year later. In October of 2021, Brian Laundrie's remains were found in a park in Florida near his home. He had committed suicide and wrote a suicide note admitting that he had killed Gabby. The circumstances surrounding the murder that he detailed don't add up. If you want to examine his suicide note together, let me know in the comments and I'll do a video about that. In March of 2022, the Petitos filed lawsuits against Mr. and Mrs. Laundrie and their lawyer, claiming that they knew that Gabby was dead even as they went and publicly stated they had no idea where she was. In November of 2022, the emotional distress lawsuit was settled. The Petitos had been asking for $3 million. They may have been awarded that, but it's doubtful they'll ever see that. Now, in February of 2024, the wrongful death lawsuit was settled, and the settlement terms remain confidential. A key part of settling that out of court was this letter. The Laundries sued to keep the burn after reading letter out of court and lost. The reason that they wanted to keep it out was it seems to imply that Roberta Laundrie was willing to help her son dispose of Gabby's body, and if that were the case, then she knew that Gabby was dead and really wasn't telling, and it was proof that they had knowledge of Gabby's death and therefore very strong evidence in the lawsuit against them. Gabby's parents also sued the police in Moab, Utah, the ones that dismissed the altercation on the side of the road and just basically told them to go and calm down, saying that if they'd taken further action, Gabby might still be alive. In November of 2024, that lawsuit was dismissed by a judge, although some of his reasons for doing so are a little questionable. We call it the burn after reading letter, but actually it was written on kind of a stiff cardboard. And I'm unclear whether it was a long, narrow piece that was folded like you would fold a greeting card, or whether it was a long, narrow piece that was simply flipped over. In either case, on the one side, it said Brian Christopher Laundrie, burn after reading. It's interesting that she addressed him by his full name, not just Brian, but that very formal Brian Christopher Laundrie to get his attention, and maybe as a reminder that she gave him all three names, in an odd echo of sometimes when we hear about parents saying, you know, Christine Mary McEachran, you're in trouble now. Except Brian wasn't in trouble, but she wanted to show her connection all through this letter. The famous burn after reading phrase that became the title of this in the court documents and in social media comes from this little parenthetical phrase that she put under his name. Why would she want him to burn it? She has one explanation. See if you believe her. On either the back cover or beside the name was this picture of a bird and the word remember. Now, those of you that have been around my videos a little while know I sometimes go down rabbit trails and get really hung up on quirky little things. And this bird just caught my attention. It's actually a nice sketch, but I kept wondering, was there something significant with it and the word remember? So I started looking up birds and how good a memory they've had. And I knew crows and ravens were insanely intelligent. I just had no idea how many birds were smart. As near as I could find, this bird might be one of three. It could be a chickadee, which they apparently have excellent memories, a magpie, or a nutcracker. It has features of kind of all of them, and they're all supposed to be almost like elephants with their memory. Let me know in the comments below if you think it is any of these birds or if it's just a bird she made up. This is the letter itself. Don't worry, I have it typed out in the slides coming up so you don't have to worry about straining your eyes to read it here. But I wanted you to see what it looked like with the handwritten notations on the card itself. I'm going to read the letter straight through without commentary so you get a feel for it, and then we'll take a look at some of the more surprising pieces. I just want you to remember I will always love you, and I know you will always love me. You are my boy. Nothing can make me stop loving you. Nothing will or could ever divide us. No matter what we do, or where we go, or what we say, we will always love each other. If you're in jail, I will bake a cake with a file in it. If you need to dispose of a body, I will show up with a shovel and garbage bags. If you fly to the moon, I will be watching the skies for your re-entry. If you say you hate my guts, I'll get new guts. Remember that love is a verb, not a noun. It's not a thing, it's not words, it is actions. Watch people's actions to know if they love you, not their words. Therefore I am certain that neither death nor life, nor angels nor the ruling spirits, nor things present nor things to come, nor powers from above, nor powers from below, nothing in the entire created world can separate our love. Neither hostile powers, nor messengers of heaven, nor monarchs of earth. Nothing has the power to separate us. Romans 8:38, extended version. Nothing can separate us, not hatred, not hunger, not homelessness, not threats, not even sin. Not the thinkable or unthinkable can get between us. Not time, not miles and miles and miles. In any circumstances, this would be a highly unusual letter for a mother to write to her 22-year-old son. But especially given the circumstances of her son being accused of murdering his girlfriend on a road trip, it gives one pause to think, really? You're willing to bring him a file in jail? You're willing to help him dispose of a body? That's not usually the type of analogy you use when you want to tell someone you love them. Now, in the lawsuit, as I mentioned, the Petito said that this letter shows that she knew that Gabby was dead and that she was willing to help him however he needed, basically to cover up his crime, and that she still loved him even if he'd killed somebody. The key is the letter is not dated, and the debate in the court became, when was this letter written? Roberta Laundrie, Brian's mother, filed an affidavit, and this is her explanation of the things that are written in the letter. Let's take a look at what she said and see if the letter itself seems to support her claims. The Laundries tried very hard to keep this letter out of the lawsuit, understandably, because it does seem to point to knowledge of Gabby's death. Roberta filed an affidavit of her explanation of when the letter was written and why it was written the way it was. Roberta Laundrie insists that she wrote and gave the letter to Brian before Brian and Gabby left Florida in June of 2021. Looking back at our timeline again, she's claiming she gave it to Brian at the end of May. However, it seems to me she's more likely to have written it after the phone call that we'll talk about on August 29th, when he called his parents and he was frantic, and probably left it in his room for him to find when he got home the next day. So what was discussed in this phone call on the 29th when Brian called home? We only have his parents' word for what was said. Allegedly, Brian told his father repeatedly, "Gabby's gone," but never said that he killed her. And he also mentioned he might need a lawyer, but he wouldn't tell his father why. Now, what did Brian's parents think "Gabby's gone" meant? Well, Brian's father claimed he had no idea what to think. Roberta Laundrie first said, well, several possibilities went through my mind. Maybe they had gotten into a fight, and Petito could have been considering pressing charges. But later on, she did acknowledge that the thought that Brian had killed Gabby probably went through her mind. But in addition to trying to explain when she wrote the letter, she also needed to explain what on earth this letter meant if it didn't mean, "I'll help you bury Gabby's body." She says, the purpose of the letter was to reach out to Brian while he and I were experiencing a difficult period in our relationship. And she said, some of the language in the letter was using similar phrases to describe the depths of a mother's love. The two books that come to mind are The Runaway Bunny and Little Bear. Okay, so you're writing to your grown son using phrases from books for 4-year-olds to try and improve communication when you're having a strained relationship. Everything else aside, there's some issues with that. But let's take a look at Runaway Bunny. Runaway Bunny is one of my favorite classic children's stories. Let's read a little snippet of it so you can hear the style, and then we'll compare it to Mrs. Laundrie's letter. Once there was a little bunny who wanted to run away. So he said to his mother, "I am running away." "If you run away," said his mother, "I will run after you, for you are my little bunny." "If you run after me," said the little bunny, "I will become a fish in a trout stream, and I will swim away from you." "If you become a fish in a trout stream," said his mother, "I will become a fisherman, and I will fish for you." And then the book goes on in this same style about what little bunny will do and how the mother will go after him. And in the end, little bunny says, "Well, if you're going to do all this, I might as well just stay here." Very sweet little book. And what does Roberta Laundrie say to her little bunny? "If you're in jail, I will bake a cake with a file in it. If you need to dispose of a body, I will show up with a shovel and garbage bags. If you fly to the moon, I will be watching the skies for your re-entry. And if you say you hate my guts, I'll get new guts." In Mrs. Laundrie's defense, the styles do match. If you run away, I will run after you. If you need to dispose of a body, I will show up with a shovel and garbage bags. But just because the styles match doesn't mean that she isn't still offering to really do this. She could be hearkening back to childhood books as part of trying to say she loves him. But she could be trying to assure him that she loves him even though she knows he murdered Gabby. She loves him so much she'll help him cover it up. Just because you're talking about a sweet little children's book doesn't mean that your topic is innocent. I also looked at the Little Bear book she mentioned, another favorite of my kids when they were young, but I didn't find any parallels either in style or content to anything she had written in her letter. One of the most important things people wanted to know was, why did she use phrases like she did that seemed so murderous? Her explanation is, there were some other phrases that I used in the letter which are not found in the books I shared with Brian as a child. Well, I should certainly hope you're not reading books to your 4-year-old about bringing shovels and garbage bags to bury somebody or putting files in to help them escape jail. Okay, good to know. But where did the phrases come from? However, these phrases were common enough in our circle of friends and family to describe who you could turn to in the most troubling times of your life. I don't get this part at all. So what brings to mind is like a group of their family and friends sitting around going, if you need to dispose of a body, I'll show up with a shovel and garbage bags. Yay! Who does this? And I didn't see anything in the affidavit of testimonials from family and friends. Yeah, when they sat around, they always promised each other they could trust each other enough to bury bodies and escape from jail. This just makes no sense to me at all. Let me know in the comments if it makes any sense to you. The next inconvenient or awkward piece of this letter that she needed to explain was the whole burn after reading, because it seemed to imply some guilty knowledge or something she didn't want to be found, especially by the police. She says that's not what it meant at all. To her, it had to do with a certain book called Burn After Writing. She's talking about this particular journal. It has a lot of emotional prompts in it, and you write the answers to those prompts to kind of get your feelings out, and then you either shred it or tear it up, or I guess you could burn it if you're careful. So she says that this book was about if you were embarrassed or simply did not want anyone to know your thoughts or feelings, and the book offered a perfect solution by telling you to burn it. She was trying to connect with Brian and repair our relationships as he was planning to leave home, and this letter would remind him how much I loved him. This logic doesn't work either. So first of all, the person who's doing the burning is supposed to be the same one that's doing the writing. So the person is supposed to be expressing emotions and not want to have anyone see them or talk about them, and so then they burn the piece of writing. So is the idea that Brian would be so embarrassed by his mother's statement of love that he should burn it? That doesn't seem to make any sense. Or is she embarrassed by what she's writing, so she wants him to burn it after reading it? That doesn't make any sense either. Usually, if you want to write a heartwarming, encouraging letter to your child to try and repair a relationship, you kind of hope they keep it. Or at least if they decide to throw it out, it's not at your suggestion. So this idea that, oh, this was just a book that Gabby, Brian, and I talked about all the time, and so that's why I put it on the front, the connections don't add up. The last half of the letter is the quote from Romans 8:38 in the New Testament. Now, I looked through over 60 versions of the New Testament, and I could not find this exact extended version she's talking about. So I'd be very curious if someone knows what translation this is, if you could let me know in the comments below. But no matter which translation it's from, what's especially interesting is where she stops the quote. Nothing has the power to separate us. In every single version, the full quote is there. It's to separate us from the love of God. So she leaves off the of God part in order to emphasize nothing can separate you and me, Brian. It's also fascinating to me because here she is, a mother, trying to convince her son how much she loves him by using a quote from the Bible. And a basic tenet of Christianity is you own up to your sins and you take accountability and you repent. And if you need to atone or serve some kind of punishment for it, you do that. So she's quoting the Bible to him at the same time she's saying, I'll help you get out of jail and bury a body. The two don't seem to mesh in my mind. But again, I'm having trouble following the logic all throughout this letter. After Gabby's death, her family set up the Gabby Petito Foundation to try and prevent domestic violence and search for missing persons. Apparently, it was pointed out to Mr. Petito that Gabby's case had gained national attention because she was young, beautiful, white, and blonde, whereas in the years surrounding Gabby's disappearance in that same area out west, over 10 indigenous women had gone missing and there had been no press coverage and very little investigation on the part of the police. At first, he didn't believe that, but then when he looked into it, he realized it was true and accepted it. And part of setting up the Gabby Petito Foundation is to ensure that no matter what someone's race, color, ethnicity, social status, that they get the publicity, help, and support that they need. Either safety if they're domestic violence sufferers, or if they're missing, extra publicity to help find them and support in any way possible. It reminded me that of the time of John Benet Ramsey's disappearance. Again, a beautiful, white, little blonde girl. There was another African-American girl in an inner city who was murdered in a very similar way, and the person not found. But you never heard about her. So maybe some of our responsibility in the internet in this day and age is to try and bring attention to those other cases that don't make the headlines the same way. If that's something you think we should pursue on here, maybe cold cases, missing persons cases, just to get the word out, let me know in the comments. It might be an interesting way to grow the channel. In the meantime, for 2025, the proceeds that I receive either in super chats for this video or the proceeds from the YouTube AdSense will go to the Gabby Petito Foundation. So what conclusions can we draw? Well, I think this letter was definitely written after that phone call from Brian the night before he got home. And I think she left it for him to find. so that he would know that his mother still loved him no matter what he'd done. Even if he didn't outright say that he had killed Gabby, I think Roberta Laundrie, at the very least, and probably his father as well, knew what Brian had done. Whether she would have actually met him somewhere with garbage bags and a shovel, who knows? Maybe she would have. But this letter is certainly an example of a very unusual communication and love between a mother and son. There's a certain infantilizing of her son with the use of sing-song from a children's book, almost kind of like talking in baby talk, which you all know I love so much. There's a certain possessiveness in the idea of you are my boy. And at the end of all of this, there's a tragedy of two sets of parents losing their children when it didn't have to happen. Thank you for stopping by tonight. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my ramblings and watch the video. Please put your comments below. You know I love to read them and I respond to them as quickly as I can. If you've enjoyed this content and you haven't subscribed to our growing Guilty Words family, we'd love to have you join us. It's a fun group. And until we meet in the next video, please use your words wisely and well. Take care.